Hey, y'all, this is Shane Sams. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast today. I'm really excited today because I've got one of the most inspirational men on the planet Earth today. My guest on the Shane Sams Show is Nick Vujicic. Now, you know I'm from Kentucky, y'all. I've been practicing that one for a long time. Nick Vujicic is an amazing guy. He's a world-renowned speaker and coach with an incredible story to share. Nick was born back in 1982, and when he came out into the world, he had no arms and legs. So this made Nick's early life really, really tough, especially going into school where he was bullied mercilessly by people in the school. It got so bad that around 8 years old, he wanted to kill himself and he tried to drown himself in a bathtub. But during the attempt, he realized, hey, my mom and dad are here. My family's here. I do have some things in my life. I want to keep going. And as he went through school, he realized he needed to stop focusing on what he didn't have and start focusing on what he did have. Nick figured out how to turn all of his obstacles into opportunities, and he learned how to live life on his terms. So on today's podcast, we're going to talk about how Nick's attitude is the beginning of everything that he does in his life and how he uses an attitude of gratitude to be successful. We're going to talk about his amazing speaking career. Nick has spoken on thousands of stages to hundreds of thousands of people. That his speaking career actually started with a fateful conversation with the janitor at his school. And then Nick and I are going to talk about what it takes to be a public speaker, what it takes to be a professional paid speaker, how you can go out and tell your story out in the world, how you can even turn speaking into a career. You know, I've had the great privilege of speaking with Nick out on the road. He really is one of the most inspirational people I've ever had the privilege to meet. And I know that you are going to be blessed by our conversation today. So wherever you are listening, maybe you're on the treadmill, maybe you're on the way to work, maybe you're on the way home. Thank you so much for tuning in. Kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. Nick, my friend, what is happening, man?
Shane, love you. Thanks for having me here, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. We get to see each other here again in a couple of weeks when we end up in Cincinnati. Get to go over to the. And I'm super pumped about this one, dude, because it's on the Kentucky side. Actually, the stadium is actually in my home state.
Really? So there you go.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. My mom and dad are coming and everything. It's gonna be awesome, man.
Awesome. Yeah. Make sure I give them a hug.
Now you're in Dallas, right?
That's where yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good little hub to kind of anchor into, isn't it?
It is. My wife actually lived here before we got married, and then I was living in California prior to that. So we moved to California. We were there. I was there for 16 years, and my wife and I just celebrated our 10th anniversary. In 2019, though, we saw enough writing on the wall of socialism and induced bottlenecks to small business owners in California, and what was happening in school systems already. So we made the decision to move out in 2019 and landed in Dallas in the midst of all the crisis.
Oh, that's like a Nostradamus move looking back on it, because it's like you got out right before everything went crazy and California was like the worst place to go through the pandemic, basically.
Yeah. No, I'm very thankful to God for that. We sold at the right time, bought here at the right time too. You know, you can imagine what that looked like too, with so many people moving here to Texas, United States of Texas, we call it.
Yeah, man. It's wild down there. I've had probably, gosh, I don't even know what the percentage is, but my friends that lived on the West Coast and lived up north are just all moving to either Florida or Texas. Yeah, I had a buddy from Canada yesterday that was like, he sent me a video. The police came to his door. He had just got back in from the country. And they came to his door to make sure they were checking to make sure he was not violating the quarantine. And he sent me a video of the cop. And I'm like, bro, you need to get you a piece of land over here in Kentucky. And like, come on down, bro, because it's crazy, man, outside of this place, dude. Tell me a little bit about where you came from, where you were born, and like how everything kind of unfolded for you.
Well, my parents were born and raised in former Yugoslavia to a point, and then they fled the communism regime. 1960s, my mom was 6, my dad was 15, spoke no English, went to Melbourne, met each other there, and I was their firstborn son. So hence Vujicic, not such an Aussie or American last name.
Right.
I am the oldest of 3 in the family. And my mum actually was a nurse for her job and vocation. So she knew all about sonograms. But when it came to her firstborn, they actually got so excited. They didn't make sure that I had 10 fingers and 10 toes on the sonogram. And so when I was actually born, it was a big shock to my parents. And there's no medical reason why I was born this way. The doctor said in their mind that they would never imagine that I'd ever walk or be mobile in any way, shape, or form, independent, and nor go to school, because at that point in the 1980s, in the education system of Australia, if you had a special needs child, they would have to go to a special needs school, if anything. And so my parents attribute their strength and courage and resilience at that point to, first of all, their faith in God, and then the tremendous family support around them. Both of their parents said, if you want to give him up for adoption, we'll adopt him. But they just felt, you know what, we're going to take this on, and we're going to embrace it. So I was actually the first disabled student in Australia, one of the, I'm going to say first three, as they changed the laws on national news for trailblazing integration into the mainstream school system, and learned how to become mobile and do many other things just by a pure model of try and fail and then try again. So no one knew what little Nick could do until little Nicky tried.
We've got a couple kids in our family that have had special needs. And it's like, when you were growing up, did you, like, before you went to school, did you know it was different, or did you just think this is me? Like, it seems like kids are just like overwhelming positivity all the time. They just live their life, and no matter what circumstances they're in. Like, did it feel overwhelming to you in the beginning, or did it feel like, hey, this is my life, this is what I'm trying to figure out? Or did it take going to school and getting into some of those situations to kind of notice there was something different?
Prior to school, I knew that I had no arms and no legs, but I didn't think it was such a big deal. That the weekly engagement with my 20 plus cousins at the time, church and family and all these things. I mean, it was life, right? Everyone just knew Nicky was Nicky. And there would be, some kids looking at me, asking questions or laughing at me, but it was very minor until I went to school. And then I had the unwanted attention of everyone in that school. And that's when I realized, hey, I am the only one without arms and legs, and maybe actually it is a big deal. And that was the first difficult, if you will, time where I realized, I am very different to everyone. And it's weird to me at age 7 or 8, I thought to myself, it's weird to me that so many people that I could really judge for how they looked are judging me for how I look, and really judging the limitation, if you will, of what they think I am as a human being, or who I am really, and what kind of a friend, they could have actually had in me if they actually didn't judge me. And so those were the early childhood thoughts, for sure, between ages 6 and 8, and went into depression. I asked questions, there were no answers, and I started to dislike my life.
How old were you when that happened? Like, was
8.
that very, very young?
8. And I already had a brother and a sister after me, and they had arms and legs. And those were the times where I was thinking about ending my life for the first time, convincing myself that I'm never going to get a job, never going to get married. Even if I got, kids at age 10, I was convinced that I would never get married, never be a good father, never be happy. And so I tried to drown myself in my bathtub, and tried to figure out how much of the water do you swallow before you start inhaling the water. And then realizing on the third roll over that if I actually went through with it, what I would really be leaving behind. And I saw a visual, if you will, of my mum and dad crying at my grave, wishing they could have done something more. And I didn't want to leave them with that pain, because they didn't deserve that. They did nothing but love me and encourage me. The first turning point out of that depression, at age 13, I was playing on the soccer field, and I have a little left foot. So for those who might not be, obviously, even on this video, you only see my shoulder's right here.
Yeah.
But at the bottom of my torso on the left side, I have an appendage we call a foot. It's got two toes. And that enables me to walk around. And I used to love playing soccer, but do many other things. But I really hurt my foot badly. So bad, I couldn't walk for 3 weeks, and I realized I have a choice either to be angry for what I don't have and what I can't control, or be thankful for what I do have and figure out what I can control. And that was the first turning point to come out of depression.
So after you thought about ending your life and you had this vision of your parents and your family, and you're like, wait a minute, I do have something, right? I've got this. In that gap there, as you get older, going up to 13, did you find people in the school that became friends that helped you get through that period and started bringing more light into your life? Or was it still just that real grind of being the first kid to ever be integrated into the school system? Did you find those people? Like, who were you playing soccer with? Was it just on the team, in PE, or what was that?
Well, soccer was not actually at the school. It was actually with my cousins. But there were probably 3 or 4 good friends at school. So I'd say both as an answer, where it was like a couple of good friends plus the grind.
Yeah, man. I think it's interesting, like what year were you born? What year did you say you were born?
82.
All right. So I was born in 78. So we kind of grew up in the same kind of era, even though it was in different parts of the world. But like, I find now a lot of encouragement based on like when I was a kid and it seemed like bullying was worse back when and it's still there. My kids and stuff still have to deal with stuff, and there's other kids doing it too. But, I feel like there's a greater acceptance in schools of differences, of challenges that other people have. It just seems like, as a society, as a culture, that is getting a little bit better, and like people are helping out more. Do you feel that way too? Or do you see that happening, or do you think it's worse?
No, it's worse.
Yeah.
100%
Really?
It's worse. Because when you look at the influential funnels for the next generation, whichever generation it is, we're seeing the results of 20 years of for instance, media that's portraying it as okay. I mean, look at, for instance, Will Smith and the Oscars. Okay, what no one's really talking about actually is actually the fact that the spine of the commentary and the humor is nothing but bagging on other people.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's talked about that, right? So this is the climax, the epiphany of epiphanies that really people should be having, is that you're seeing right there, that's all emanated in the movies, in real life, that shaped the culture, that in real life culture is such that it's okay to tease each other. And so that's only one element of influence that is really falsifying what is acceptable or tolerable. And then you've got the other conversation going on in the extremes of acceptance of minority groups, where minority groups get huge spotlights above anybody else for whatever people could say it is an agenda or not an agenda, depends who you talk about, and talk to. But understanding that anybody who has a massive spotlight, above other minority groups, then all of a sudden it's not about equality.
Maybe it's a veneer then. Like, it's like we're getting this message like everyone's tolerant and everyone's inclusive and bullying's getting less. But the real life fact is, no, you're being crushed in public. You're being slapped on stage. You're being things. It's like there's a veneer of it being better, but maybe it's not.
But there's a whole dimension,
social media,
There's a whole different dimension, because now the new dimension that you didn't have 10 years ago, which you do have now, is what do you think of me? So I'm now going to judge you based on what you judge me of, but not in a reactive. Do you understand? Like, I'm not going to judge you or not like you unless you give me a reason to not like you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now it's like, now I need to know who accepts me. Then I know who I'm not with or who's not with me. Do you understand? Like it's a
Totally.
entirely different dimension. It's a beast, dude. It's
Yeah.
a beast.
It's giving a lot of control away too. Like, why do I care what you think of me to accept myself? Or why do I think why do I have to figure out what you
Exactly.
think of me before I have to judge what I'm going to be
Right.
in the real world? And
Right.
so all the power, it feels like more empowering. It's like it's packaged as more empowering, but it's actually a whole lot less empowering because you're putting
Oh,
all your
it's
control into somebody else's hands, you
yeah,
know?
and it's scary. It's and put any control into a human nature driven human, and you'll see the world. So, look, I love
Yeah.
everyone, Shane. That's who I am. I love everyone. You want to ask me doctrinally or what kind of school my kids go to? That's a personal thing. It doesn't matter. But the bottom line is that's the bullying dimension that no
Interesting.
one really understands now to a magnitude.
Yeah. I taught schools for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And it was now, granted, I teach schools in Kentucky, so we're in the South, and it's a little different. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
I watched it, and there's still all the same dynamics. But I was kind of coming up in teaching right when social media was in. Like, I remember teaching when kids didn't have phones, and only like 2 or 3 kids did, and then 4 or 5 did, and then the next year 50% of the class did, and then after that. And now that I think about it, it was, and I left though in like 2009. So I was right before the last 10 years, which has been insane with social media and everything else. It's nuts though that now that you bring this up to me, does seem like there's a veneer over it where we're told it's getting better, but in reality, we see Will Smith slap Chris Rock on the face. So, and then nobody defends Chris Rock. Everyone just makes fun of it and laughs at it and makes a meme about it because it's so culturally acceptable to just pile on like either side, you know? Dude, you've enlightened me a little bit here already, man. So, all right, so let's go back to 13. All right, so this is the turning point. You kind of you realize you're focusing too much on what you don't have. You want to focus on what you do have. So how does that shape you growing into adulthood? Like, do you just start? Are you super positive all the time from that moment on, or like what happens with
No,
that? You know?
no. Look, at age 6, I was already vacuuming the floor with my left shoulder for $2 a week. My parents never gave me what I wanted, when I wanted it, how I wanted it. When we talked about something from the store, they said,
Hmm.
figure it out, get your own money, buy your own things. I only got a birthday gift, that's it. And my parents were in refugee camps, and they told us stories. They always told us, when you have food, think of those who don't have any food. And so that attitude of gratitude was the first step for me, in knowing that there's no use in complaining about what you don't have, and embrace it. Then at that point, as I started maturing, started getting more confident in myself, accepting me for me more. I'm giving you the highlight, right? It was definitely the foundation for me to be open to possibilities.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the
And it,
tech you have now too wasn't available back then. Like now you have this amazing I get to hang out with Nick backstage at these events we're at. And you got this amazing chair. You've got all this support. Like it seems like the technology was really good, but like back then, was it just wheelchairs? Was it just what was it back then when you
no,
were growing up?
I had my own motorized wheelchair.
Nice, nice.
It was a custom built where the seat went all the way down. I could go all the way up.
Oh wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I was really blessed that way. We tried robotic limbs. So some people are like, well, let's try this, let's try that, right? And they're like, we want to fund the things to try and make you more independent. And robotic arms did not really go well for me. We
Yeah.
tried it for 6 to 7 months, and so that was that. At age 15, I came to an epiphany for me, like Shane, like everyone, right? We understand everyone's got different belief systems, but there are 6 gauges, if you will, or tanks to fill for a full life. The first one is faith. Second one is family. Third one is friends.
Hmm.
Next one is finance. Next one is fitness. And the last one is fun. So those are 6 funnels for a full life for me. And faith to me starts in the soul and the spirit, right? And so I came to my faith beginning journey as a Christian at age 15, and I believed that there's a greater purpose, that there's another life, that there's a greater purpose to even the circumstances that are not even changing. And so then at age 17, 2 years later, being open to possibilities, having faith to believe that some things could be actually bigger purposes behind it all. I became a student peer leader in the junior year of high school, speaking in front of 1,300 students, the whole school. The janitor saw me speak and he said, "Nick, you're going to be a worldwide speaker." And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "You're going to go around the world and you're going to share your story." I said, "I don't have a story." He said, "Yes, you do." I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Yes, you do. And I want to start arranging your first speech, sharing your story." I'm like, "No, man, get away. Like, no way."
This is the janitor you said is helping you.
The janitor who cleaned the toilets. Yeah.
He's laying out your speech. Like he's helping you actually not just saying, not just prophesying into your life. He's like, "No, man, I'm going to sit down. We're going to structure your talk."
Sorry. He's going to set up a speaking engagement.
Oh, I thought he was like, "Sit down, son. I'm gonna outline this for you exactly."
No.
It's like this is like Gandalf, the janitor.
But he was for me, right? So because for 3 months he said, "Come on, let's do this." I said, "No." He twisted my arm. I said yes, and I got up in front of 5 students, and they were crying while I just shared, for 5 minutes. Now, public speaking is the biggest fear in the world. Second one is death. So some people would rather die than actually become a speaker. And so my palms were sweating, my knees were shaking, and as I'm speaking, people are crying, and it was just phenomenal. What happened after that? The feeling I had. Seeing people crying, I'm like, "Why are you crying?" It wasn't so profound to me, right? It's just sharing what happened to me, right? And how I am here. A survival story. That's it. And people called me. Speak here, speak there. This organization, this church, this, all these youth groups. And then they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm at that time, Shane, a mathematical mind, a financial mind, okay? So let me back up. When I was younger, like pre-10 years old, my dad said, "You got to be quick to make your first million because you're not going to get employed. You have to figure it out. You have to have employees to be your hands and feet. Get into the stock market, get into real estate, get into finances, and push yourself to mathematics."
Yeah.
So he pushed me. I became number 1 in math, became number 1 in chess in my year level. And my limitation with having no extremities, when I wanted to reach something on a bookshelf, I had to figure it out to pull the ottoman, to jump on the ottoman, to then use the corner of the bookshelf that hurt my forehead while I used it to get upright, to then grab the thing with my teeth. And the epiphany was, you don't know what's impossible until you try.
Yeah.
Or flip it around. You don't know what's possible until you know what's impossible. And so it's really phenomenal and really fun when you realize the power of your choice, the power of the perspective, the power of all these things that really now then came naturally to then an abstract thinking towards life.
Yeah.
So I got introduced to the stock market at age 16. I was trading my dad's money at 16 while he was at work 9 to 5. He called me at lunch, and then I put my own money in stocks. Then I went to an options trading class, $3,000 options trading class, and went for it, and made 10% per trade, swing trades really, not day trading, and it was fun. It was awesome. Was always a risk taker. Had no problem risking money. Money comes and goes. And
so you're doing this. We're doing this when you're a teenager, basically.
Yeah, 17 years old.
Man,
it was
before
kind of
you even
illegal.
started speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I just used my parents. Blah blah blah. So, but I did. Yeah, that was prior to speaking. So then, age 17 to 19, Shane, I spoke 12 times. And my parents were like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just sharing my story. They're like, what do you mean? What's your story? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm just sharing in front of people and they're crying. They're like, why are they crying? I said, I don't know. And they're like, is this a hobby or a job? I said, I don't know. Yeah, they're paying you? I said, no. And they're like, well, then it's a hobby.
It's a
okay?
hobby,
Just
right?
stick to what we've told you. Go get your degree in accounting and financial planning and keep on going, right? And so I'm like, okay, great. I graduate at 18, go to college. In Australia, the education system is very, very different. $40,000, 3 years, double major, Bachelor of Commerce in financial planning and accounting. I paid my degree in cash, and I, at 19, already went into investment in real estate and went to a real estate boot camp out in Arizona in the United States and really deep dove into that with John Burley, who's still incredibly
I just want
close
to point
me.
out here too. I just want to point out, like, what I love about your story is, especially after the turning point, is you didn't just say it wasn't just a get by mentality. It was an investment. Like, I mean, I'm buying a course to learn how to stock. I'm risking my money to make more money. I fly to America and buy another course to go and do the real estate. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to seek out mentor and stuff like this. Like, you brought this investment mentality into your life, into your speaking, into everything else. And like, that's where yield and ROI, that's where it comes from, right? It's not just you were like, I'm just going to go tell my story and that's how it's going to be. It's like, no, I'm going to invest and get better at my craft and figure this out.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm going to tell you, and that was my income last year. I took my 401k. I mean, what happened to every speaker?
Oh yeah, they didn't speak.
I took my 401k, and in 24 weeks, we double and a halved the portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And I cashed out my 401k completely. Yeah. And so that helped us sustain, right? And so it's unbelievable. When you invest in yourself, it's for life. No one can take away your knowledge away, right?
Yep.
It's phenomenal. And then you can impart that to the legacy. So anyway, back to age 19, was in that and set my goal to make my first million at 25 and to retire my parents. Graduated at 21, but the passion for speaking just exploded.
Yeah.
Still made my first million by age 27, then lost it all. Then it came back.
That's a common theme too with people. It's like, once you realize you can make $1 million, you're a lot like, okay, I'm going to go do something else. You might lose it, but you're like, I know how to make $1 million. I'm going to try to do it again. Exactly. Once you figure it out, it's like, okay, well, maybe I can take more risks and maybe I won't totally screw this up.
You're less emotional about it. You're less emotional about it for sure. And so, not that it doesn't get emotional when you lose everything, trust me, or even the second time, it's still hard. But it's not just that. It's the compounding other elements, a thing called life.
Yeah.
Apart from money.
Right.
And the responsibilities that evolve and change with the needs and the desires based on how your life is changing from bachelor to marriage, marriage to one child, marriage to now 4 kids, right? And now being 39 years old, not 19 anymore, not 29 years old, right? 39 years. So yeah, all these elements, and I came up with an epiphany of a book I really want to write. I'm so excited to whiteboard it out. Anyway, all to say this, Shane, I loved the day I was speaking in 2002.
Yep.
And a girl wept. Everyone cried, but she wept. And she put up her hand and she said, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but can I come up there and give you a hug? And in front of 300 sophomore students, she came up, she hugged me on my shoulder and she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. No one's ever told me that they love me. No one's ever told me that I'm beautiful the way that I am. And my first emotion, my first reaction was shock. Shock. How could you go through up to sophomore and no one tell you that you're loved or that you're beautiful the way that you are? If I didn't have that, I would have checked out at age 10.
Yeah.
How many more millions of people I thought need to hear this? And that's when I knew I was born to be a speaker. And so while speaking, I came out to America. Long story. I don't know how much time we got, but left everyone in Australia, felt called to come out here to America. A relative of mine, Uncle Bata, who's actually like my second father, if you will, my very much father figure. My dad died in 2017, and he is now right now dealing with stage 4 cancer, Bata. And Bata back then, he's 72 now. He said, "What do you want to do in your life?" And I said, I really want to become financially independent and reach the world with the faith in Jesus Christ. And he said, "Well, you can't do it from Australia. Come to America." And came out here, and I took Shane. My mum said, "Don't go to America." I said, "Why not?" She said, "You're going to lose all your money. So you'll appreciate this." So I said, "I'm not going to lose my money." She said, "Well, how are you going to prove it?" I said, "I don't know." And the next day I came up to her and said, "You know what? I'm going to call my friend. I'm going to get a $300,000 loan from my friend at 10% interest only. I'm going to keep all my cash here, and I'll go to America on loaned money," which I
There you
did.
go. Leverage, baby.
And so yeah, dude, it was quite at 23 years old, man, 23
Yeah.
years old. And here we are 16, 17 years later.
The speaking thing's amazing because, like I've been a podcaster for about 10 years and, we speak to a lot of people, but there's just something different about when it's on stage and live. Our stories are crafted over time. Like we get better at speaking. We get better at the telling of the story. Like I'm sure the same story you tell now is the same story, but it's improved since the first time you took it because you realize where the emotional notes are and you realize what people need to hear. And you remember to tell the crowd that they're loved and beautiful the way they are because that girl reacted like that way. It's just so powerful when you can get a group of people in a room and you can tell your story. And you don't have to have it's funny, like how, like someone might say, well, Nick's got this amazing story. Well, yeah, well, God gave him that story so that he could go tell it. But like even your story or my story or somebody else's story might not reach another person. They might need your story, right? And I really think God put us here to experience our stories and tell them to each other so that we'd be pointed in the right direction. That's why he gave us the Bible through story, right?
Right. Your history is his story.
That's right, man.
When you don't get a miracle, be one, right? So someone who is sexually abused, I don't know what that feels like, but if you've gone through sexual abuse, first of all, I'm sorry. I really, really am. And if you haven't gone through counseling, I really encourage you to go through counseling. I go through counseling, okay? I hit rock bottom. I've had the hardest 3 years of my life, Shane, just now. And I just came, like, it's an overarching arc that's it's incredible. But I went through counseling exactly a year ago. I finished my 10 hours of counseling and just so many variables all happened at the same time. It was nuts. And it unearthed the emotions that I bottled up over the 9 people that betrayed me over the last 20 years that I never got to talk through and heal through and see the wounds as scars. But if you've gone through sexual abuse, if you've gone through a childhood where your parents are divorced and have been divorced and you even blamed yourself, right? I actually believe that that's even worse than having no arms, no legs, losing your mom and dad, okay, in that aspect. But those who've been in a divorced family, those who've been sexually abused, when you get through it, you not just go through things, you grow through things. And if you don't get a miracle, you can still be one. And then therein one day be able to be a helping hand for somebody else. Just like I met a limbless boy, first one of 30, no arms, no legs in California. And I realized if I was born this way, to then be, just be and live, yet in me just being and living without him knowing my story, right? Just me existing and him seeing the YouTube videos that went viral of me swimming and golfing and fishing and all that. If he knows that Uncle Nick's going to be Uncle Nick's okay, and then I'm going to be okay. Yeah. Anyone else on any other thread? I mean, I've written out 106 different ways in how the human being can suffer. Okay. Yeah. I'm obsessed with reflection and meditation in what hope could look like for people and how to connect with people. Yes, I agree with you that there is nothing like an in-person event, but actually, when you get to a master level, I've been in avatar VR situations with audiences, Walmart, Target, where they've been in, and the audiences around the world have been in VR headsets for 7 years, and they said this is the first time that I've cried on my VR headset. VR is
Wow.
way better than everyone thinks. And so I'm
It's
actually
intense, man.
building.
My son and my daughter are all about that Oculus.
Yeah,
I
we're
mean,
doing a
it's the
VR
next
speakers
wave, man.
bureau, bro. We're doing a VR speakers bureau. That's what we're working on
Wow.
right now.
So will you put people in like, so they'll be in like a virtual auditorium with the
Yeah,
speaker
yeah,
like on stage and
yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
that's pretty
No,
legit, man. That's where it's all going, man. It's even just the telling of your story, even podcasting. It's just crazy
oh, it's
how
huge.
intimate, like just telling stories through this podcast medium are. Like I'll have people come up to me like at conferences or something, and they'll come up to me, they'll say things like, hey, did what happened when Anna Joe wouldn't go into the classroom? I never heard the rest of that story. Or, hey, remember when Isaac did XYZ? And they just remember a small side story that you told, but for some reason it hooked into their life and it related to them in a way that no one else could relate to them in that moment.
I love it. I love it. And to everyone listening, listen very carefully. It doesn't matter how you share your story or what medium it is. It's you being faithful to yourself in that it's not an achievement that's granted when you get the trophy. It's what you do with that, right? And so the achievement of surviving or thriving, same trophies. What are you going to do with it, right? And so to share that story. I was just told 2 weeks ago, Shane, something I'll never forget. You can count the seeds in an apple, but you can't count the apples in a seed.
Yep.
And you just have no idea what part of your story or what part of your podcast will not just resonate and capture their heart, but literally change their life that you may never even hear of later. I literally just had a meeting here in my office about how my book saved their life.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
Yeah, man. I had a moment one time where it actually changed the whole way we did business. We never like hid our faith or our family values or anything like that, but we were just a brand talking about online business, And one episode, like we had talked a little bit about a Bible verse or something, didn't even think much about it. Like it was like, oh, this cool verse I read this week. It came up in conversation, basically, right? So I get a message from this person and they're like, I really want to join your community. I really want to do this. I really want to do that. But I can't because I live in Iran and we are under sanctions. We can't buy things outside of we can't do that right now. And I just really wish that I could engage with you more. And the person had mentioned that how much they loved us and our story and our values. And they noticed that Bible verse. And I was like, Nick, my story can go where missionaries can't go with the technology that we have today if I'll just say it and through these mediums. And man, it's just crazy how powerful you got a cell phone in your pocket. You're a speaker. Go on YouTube, go live on Facebook, start a podcast. And then if you want to get on stage, those opportunities will come like they've came for me, like they've came for you, like they've came for other people. You just got to keep telling your story. How do you balance your story? This is something this is more of just a off tangent here. My story and your story involves other people, right? Like you talk about your mom and dad, you talk about your family sometimes, you talk about this, that, and the other. And mine's the same way. Like you've heard my story, and my story, like it's a lot about my. I appreciate that. Coming from you, that means the world to me, dude. And it involves my son. It involves my wife. Like, how do we tell our story and navigate that we're not the only person in the story? Like, do you ever wrestle with that or think about that, or how do you go through that as a speaker?
Look, I wouldn't break my head over it. You finesse it over time. I think the way that I mean, people think that I've gone to speech classes, right? I didn't. I had a coach for 10 hours actually as a teenager. My teacher aide at school, John Hyman, Time and Energy was his company. He just put his time and energy into me for 10 hours ish. and just talked about the science of presentation. Back then, everyone was just copying everybody else. Okay, we're talking like literally 22, 23 years. Everyone was regurgitating what everyone was already saying. It was ridiculous. And so that's what was happening. And motivational speaking wasn't even a thing in the year 2000, unless it's an American that came to Australia, right?
Right, yeah.
Like seriously. And so I refused to watch other speakers because I didn't want to take their content organically. So he didn't talk about content, but presentation and the science of it. And of that, then my classroom were the 500 speeches, first 500 speeches that I felt nervous, that I was finessing and changing and massaging until a point where you go from full on reading to note palm cards to prompt thoughts to no notes now. And I generally, Shane, have no idea now what I'm about to say coming out of my mouth until I actually get up on stage, because I could speak now 8 hours to any audience.
Yep.
After you've done it 3,500 times, with the discernment of who's there, what their goal is, and there's always principles. There's nothing new under the sun, and your story is your story. But then trying to culminate to the client what you want them to think and feel and do after, that's how you finesse then that stage right there and then. But literally, it's just a ton of practice.
Yeah, it's reps, man. It's just like Life Surge was I wasn't a speaker until Joe Johnson called me.
Oh, really?
No, I was not a speaker, dude.
You're a great communicator. I would never have thought it. Yo, it was fantastic.
Joe called us in the middle of the pandemic and said he was starting a live event company. I was still not supposed to be a speaker. I was just a fulfillment partner. And then I went to our first partner meeting and I told our story. I just had 45 minutes that we were just introducing our companies to each other. And everybody lost their mind. And then Joe was like, "Do you think you could get up on the big stage?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Sure, why not?" Tampa was the first one. Dallas was the third one, right? But I always caveat this, because that people are like, "Well, see, you just had a talent for it or whatever." No, I have 10 years and over 1,000 podcasts of my own. And I've been on hundreds of podcasts telling my story. I've got the reps. I promise you I have the reps. The reps is all it is. It's like telling your authentic story over time. You figure out the order and the structure and what it'll work.
Exactly.
So like you don't have to wait to be someone to give you a big stage. You can literally just start a podcast. Anybody can do it with their phone.
Yeah, no, I love it. And the only way to do that, like if everyone listened to my first speech, if everyone listened to Shane's first podcast, you'd see that we're nervous, we're a wreck, we don't know what's going on, we don't even want to see that anymore. We don't want to see the 100th one either out of the 1,000 or 3,000. Let me tell you, I can't even stand watching myself. Actually,
I don't listen. I don't listen to my own podcast or watch my speeches over.
No, I'm like, you guys, you edit it. Just tell me what you and I'll approve and whatever. You know, it's like, okay, great. Like, it still stirs me up the wrong way. So look, you get over that fear. You figure out the lane. You run in it and you perfect it, and you keep on doing those reps.
Yeah, man. My first, it's funny, you said earlier, the number one fear is public speaking and the second one is death, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's funny how I look back now and all of the things that made me afraid to open my mouth and say my story out loud were just totally false. And I don't know if it's the enemy trying to talk you out of it because there's good things about to happen, or if it's just that ingrained fear we have. But like, I remember me and Jocelyn were shaking, nervous to hit record on our first podcast because we were afraid people would judge us for being from Kentucky and our voice. And it was such a fear. And I look back now and I'm like, our whole brand exists because people love that. And like, it's crazy, man, these weaknesses and these fears, how they fade away when you just put yourself out there and do the reps, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you use a speaking service? Do you find your own gigs? Like how do you do that? Do you just have an agent or something like that? Or in the beginning, did you find your own?
I personally called 53 schools before we got one yes, after I realized I wanted to be a speaker. I wanted to do it while I'm studying. So while I was studying, Shane, I also did day trading in the morning. it's not exactly day trading, but there was a daily repetitious trade on a stock
Sure.
that just did it every single day. And I milked it for 3 months straight. And I'm making $185 with a couple grand put in 5 minutes of my time. And I was doing that. I was studying and I was doing speaking and wanted to do that and go for it. But it started with me inviting myself to schools. And so I didn't know how to market myself. I didn't know how to pitch myself. I didn't know how anything. I didn't even know my pricing. And it just got no, 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 no. And you get to a point where you get so many no's, you're ready for the no. And then when you get a yes, you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to say now. And then I
have to
did
go do
that.
this speech.
Right now, and there's such a great story in that first speech to ultimately say, oh my goodness, that was the greatest waste of my life, of time and energy, and that was a failure. I'll never be a speaker. Next morning, I got a call from a school who heard from a school to say, hey, you need Nick. And then I did that one, and then 2 schools, and then 5 schools. And it was amazing. It was amazing. We've clocked over, we stopped counting, 33,000 invitations for me to speak, of which 90% of them I said no to. And we've paid no marketing for it. And we did all of our operations in-house. I was 23 when I got my first employee. She's still with me after 17 years. And we've done everything in-house. But we also leverage non-exclusive bureaus and give people cuts of 20%.
Yeah. I always tell people too, like, I love this story because I find that my friends who are successful speakers, their story sounds like this a lot. And everybody always says, like, how do you get into speaking? Well, the first thing you have to do is grind out those first few gigs. And then you got to go deliver. And then you got to get better. And then you got to start leveraging the tools that you have available. But like, you got to do what Nick did, not what he does now. Like, that's what people, I think, make a mistake. They try to jump straight into this and get an agent and get a bureau. But there's something like glorious about that first grind that almost kills you, and you keep going past it. Yep. And you can appreciate what you get when you earn it, man. So, dude, we could probably talk for hours, man. I just want to say, man, your talk on stage is fire. If anybody ever gets a chance to go see you, they got to go do it, man. Me and Jocelyn watched it the first time at the first event we spoke at together. And I was just like, well, I guess I got to go now. But dude, it's amazing, man. And like, I'm so glad that our paths have crossed and that I got to share you with our listeners, man. But before we go, tell everybody a little bit, like, where can they learn more about you online? Maybe see your speaking schedule or anything like that. Where can they connect with Nick on the internet?
Look, so just go to, any Life Surge event that's coming up. Shane, I do want to say something. Let me quickly answer your question. So if anybody's interested in the evangelical faith-based nonprofit organization, lifewithoutlimbs.org, I have an app called Nick V Network. Download it. There is nothing there. You won't get anything for it. 4,000 people are already on it. And they're banging at the door. Nick, when are you going to start posting? There's a big, big thing that's happening. I'm going to be stepping off Facebook, Shane. 10 million fans. I'm going to click off the page and go to my own app this year. And Nick V Network is going to be phenomenal where we're going. You can find us if anyone's interested about how I actually got kicked out of a bank, cancel culture in 2019, starting our own bank, Pro-Life Bank Proposed. We found out that banks actually give to Planned Parenthood organizations. So check out Pro-Life Bank as well. Sign up for the newsletters and updates coming up. We're close to getting investment money where we can purchase a bank. It's quicker if you just purchase a bank. So that's where you can find me. The one thing I want to say, Shane, that I've actually never said to anybody else was I was really intrigued by you and your wife's story, because it's a story really of both of you, right? And your son, but you were the lead role, right? And the decision maker and the risk taker, and it was incredible. Oh my gosh. What I love is no one can look at you, in my opinion, and say, but I didn't have what you had. Meaning, Nick, well, of course you're going to have a story. You got no arms, no legs. And now look at your tenacity. But I can never, ever be like you because you're Nick. What I love about how you've broken your story down in a digestive, relational way where it's a story for everyone in a 9-to-5 job who love their family, who knows there's something better than a 9-to-5 job. I had one 9-to-5 job and I hated it in 2 weeks. It was just work experience over Christmas. Information technology, troubleshooting, call center, whatever, for a hospital, right? I was in there. I hated it. Couldn't care less. I didn't want a boss. I wanted to be my own boss. And that's when I just push. And so love your story because it is for everyone. And what you share with people, Shane, can be done by anyone that's got internet, something that they know that someone doesn't know.
Yep.
Or something that is not being shared the way that you can share it. I am just so intrigued in how, you and I, we're going to do some stuff together. But because I tried a podcast and it wasn't for me, right? But maybe it's because I didn't have Shane by my side. And so that's the interesting thing where we're going towards. I felt like TV is my thing, but we'll see where we go in our brain. But with Shane, I just want everyone to listen to my endorsement of you because I've seen you speak. You're legit. You love God, you love your family, and you love people. And there's just such a phenomenal story that I can't wait to continue to share your story with other people.
Brother, I appreciate that so much. You did not have to say that, but man, see, you talked all show about making people cry, and then you go make me cry at the end of this podcast.
I love you, man. I can't wait to give you a hug, man. You're a big teddy bear.
All right, y'all. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Nick Vujicic. We were just starting to geek out, y'all. I was ready to go, but sometimes schedules don't let you go into those 2 and 3 hour podcasts. So we had to wrap this one up, but I hope to have Nick back in the future as well, and we can continue that amazing conversation that we just had. As I mentioned in this interview, I consider myself a podcaster. My podcast drives everything in my online business. My family makes its entire living online on the internet. And that's why I'm able to have these conversations, record these podcasts, and bring them to you. Because I'm a location-independent, self-employed online entrepreneur. And hey, I would love to help you do the same thing. I'd love to help you have an income online. I'd love to help you start, build, and grow an online business. And I can teach you how to do it over at flippedlifestyle.com. The Shane Sam Show and all of my podcasts are brought to you by flippedlifestyle.com and the Flipped Lifestyle community. The Flipped Lifestyle community is designed for family-focused entrepreneurs who want to start, build, and grow an online business, want to make money online, want to take control of their life, change their family's future, and build an inheritance for their children's children. I started my online business in 2012. In 2013, I was able to quit my job entirely based on my online income, and we have helped thousands of other people do the same thing over the years. If you'd like to learn more about starting, building, and growing an online business of your own, working from home, and making money online, all you have to do is go to flippedlifestyle.com/free. That's FLIPPED lifestyle.com/free. And you can get all of our free resources so that you can start your online business journey. Again, that's flippedlifestyle.com/free to start your journey today. And if you can't remember how to spell that one, all you got to do is go to shanesams.com. We'll get you started over there as well. Hey, that's all the time I have for this week, guys. Wrapping this show up. If you loved this podcast, could you do me a favor? Did you love the conversation that I just had with Nick? Why don't you share that on social media? If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, hit that review button. Go leave us a review. Make sure you subscribe to the show and download a couple episodes every single week to listen to on your commute, at the gym, or the next time you take a walk. We appreciate all that support. It helps us grow the show, get the word out, and keep bringing amazing guests to you every single week. And I will be back with you again next week. Until then, I want you to do me a favor. Get out there and do something big in the world. Whatever it is you choose to do, be consistent, be prolific, and be relentless at that task. Go out there and make an impact, y'all. Pick your stone up, cast it out upon the waters. Cause many ripples. I'll see you then.